The Raiders are on the eve of their very first preseason game of 2024. So what is it that I'll be looking for? That plus a whole lot more on Friday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for August 9th, 2024.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen of the day. Make sure you subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast to get the latest edition of the show. And as always, if you're checking us out on YouTube, you know we appreciate that. The show grows on the daily, and that's because of the support of you, Raider Nation, and because of my man Ari, who does a great job each and every day making sure we're on YouTube, we're looking good, and we're sounding good. We appreciate him. We shout him out. He's on Twitter at Ari Produces. You can hit me up as well at your boy Q254. And if you want to chime in on the show, you want to be a part of the show, the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Your calls and texts will come up with segment number 3. A ton of calls, ton of texts. We'll get as many as possible. I know I won't be able to get all of them in, but I'll get as much in as possible. We'll do that in segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Segment number 2. What is it that I'll be looking for in Saturday's preseason game against the Minnesota Vikings? In a preseason for the Silver and Black, that means a lot more than it has meant in a handful of years. And when I say a handful, almost a full decade, right? I mean, this is actually a preseason that's going to mean a lot. We'll talk about that coming up in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Here in segment number 1, just news and notes of the day. We'll jump right into it after I tell you about the title sponsor of the show, which is LinkedIn Jobs. They help you find the qualified candidate you want to talk to faster. All you got to do is post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. So super excited to be back in Studio Q after the trip to Costa Mesa was gone for quite a while. Like I said, glad to be back at the house. Glad to be back in my own bed, right? It is all good. So, yeah, made the trip safely on Wednesday night. Arrived super early in the morning on Thursday morning. And, yeah, ready to rock and roll, head into the weekend, get into preseason game number 1 versus the Minnesota Vikings. Before we do any of that and start talking about expectations for that game, I did want to take you back a little ways. My man Omar Ruiz from NFL Network, he was at the Raiders scrimmage last Saturday in Costa Mesa. I was actually able to hang out and talk with him for a little while, as well as Cynthia Freeland from the NFL Network, Norv Turner, former Raiders coach, and obviously a very sharp offensive mind was there as well. There was a lot of folks there. TJ Houshmandzadeh, tons of people were there at the scrimmage, and really the whole time in Costa Mesa, there was a cast and characters of a lot of different folks that would show up and arrive. And Omar does a fantastic job for NFL Network. We were talking a lot about just kind of the team and expectations of the team. Well, he went back to his show on NFL Network and was talking with Mike Garafolo just about the team in general and what he saw from that scrimmage. Here's Omar Ruiz just from the other day on NFL Network.
It's pretty remarkable. Very Aaron Donald-esque when I was out at that scrimmage on Saturday. Reminded me of the way Aaron Donald used to wreak havoc in practice at the Rams, where the offense really had a difficult time doing anything. Max Crosby sack in the first play of the scrimmage, and he brought Gardner Minshew to the ground. And Mike, you know how you know Max Crosby is a special player in that organization? You've been around practices when quarterbacks get touched with their red jerseys and all heck breaks loose. Well, that did not happen. Who's going to tell Max Crosby, you got to slow down? The very next play after that, it's a forced fumble. He really was establishing himself as a dominant force out there. And I had a conversation with Raiders owner Mark Davis while we were out there admiring Max Crosby's play. And he told me that he's really proud of the way he's asserted himself as a leader, essentially the face of the franchise in that regard, because he's earned it. He's the first one that shows up year-round, obsessive with getting better. And it's not just himself trying to become the best version of himself. It's the way that Max Crosby tries to elevate his teammates in that regard and really pushes for the team's success. Davis telling me that he thinks that Max Crosby reminds him of the old school Raiders when they had 53 guys like that were relentless on the practice field and not letting their teammates subpar effort. So Max Crosby really pushing it. You've seen the impact in training camp with Christian Wilkins. They're now having that other established force on the defensive line. And obviously we talked about the quarterback situation and the question marks that will be there that will certainly surround the question marks for the entire offense. But if this team is going to contend in the AFC West, they'll need that defense to become an elite defense with Patrick Graham at the helm, and certainly Max Crosby's elite play would be a big part of that.
So I wanted to make sure I passed that along. I've been trying to get that onto the show for the past couple of days and just been running out of time. So wanted to let you hear what Omar Ruiz had to say. And, the reason I like to bring sound like that to the show is because so many times people say nobody's talking about the Raiders nationally. Nobody's looking at the Raiders, paying attention to the Raiders. No one's giving the Raiders any kind of credit. And Omar Ruiz is a guy that's always giving the Raiders a lot of credit. He's a guy that covers the Raiders like a glove. He's at Allegiant Stadium consistently. He's actually was there when they first started constructing Allegiant Stadium. So he's been very fair and honest when it comes to the silver and black. Really good friend of mine as well. And it was great to see him at the scrimmage on Saturday. So when I saw that he went back and had a conversation about that scrimmage, and you heard him talking about Max Crosby and just how he was wrecking shop and comparing him to Aaron Donald, like that's big time praise right there. As you know, Aaron Donald's going to be wearing a gold jacket sooner rather than later. Now that he's retired, it's only going to take him a handful of years, and he'll be in Canton, Ohio, and he'll have his bust there. So just nice to hear Max Crosby get that kind of love from someone on the national scene like Omar Ruiz. And coming up in segment number 2, I'm going to let you know what I'm looking for in this game, and I'll be paying attention to from the Raiders side of things when it comes to the Raiders and Vikings. But my guy Luke Braun, host of Locked On Vikings, he actually hit me up with a little bit of sound on what to look for from the Vikings, or what Raider Nation should expect from the Vikings. I thought that was really cool. I returned the favor as well, sent him a couple-minute audio and a video of what to expect from the Raiders side of things. But here's Luke Braun, host of Locked On Vikings, just talking about the Minnesota side of things. Instead of doing a full crossover edition for a preseason game, just kind of give you a quick hitter right here. Here's Luke Braun talking about the Vikings.
What's up, Q? What's up, Raider Nation? So here's what you got to know about Minnesota going into this Saturday's preseason game. So they're going to play their starters. They usually don't. This is actually a bit of a new thing for Kevin O'Connell. He's going to play the starters in the preseason. You're not going to see a ton of them, though, maybe like a drive or two, right? So for most of the game, we're going to be looking at some of the more like depth players. One guy to watch is number 83, Jalen Naylor. He has been absolutely explosive in camp. He's in his third year. He was hurt a whole bunch last year. Kind of felt like his explosive potential as a fast kind of take the top off your receiver was waning, and now he comes into this camp and he absolutely explodes things. So we're all really excited to see him. So whoever you got going in the secondary, whoever's competing in the secondary might have their hands full over there with Jalen Naylor, but if somebody puts the clamps on him, no, that's that much more impressive. On the other side of the ball, it's like a lot of the interesting stuff is on the perimeter. So on the other side of the ball, there's a whole bunch of players vying for a roster spot, and pretty much any of them can get it. There's Duke Shelley. I know you're familiar with him. There's Dwight McGlothern, who is from Arkansas, undrafted rookie. There's also Andrew Booth, who's a second-round pick, second-year player who might not make the team and is kind of fighting for that and has been kind of on the wrong end of a lot of big highlights in camp. But maybe the big thing that we're all watching for is, of course, J.J. McCarthy. He's going to play a ton in this game, so we all get to watch the rookie come forward. He's still very much a work in progress, but he's been what I'll say is far ahead of what I thought we would see. He's definitely put up his fair share of highlights in camp, and mechanically you can tell he's still kind of working through some of the things that they've changed about his footwork. So we'll see just how fast things are. You might see a lot of sacks. That's been a big theme of camp, is just that Brian Flores has been blitzing and giving exotic looks all the time, and there are a lot of plays that are highlights, but that would be sacks if you were tackling. So that kind of maybe that means that there's an opportunity for the Raiders D-line, or maybe that just means that Brian Flores has been insane, and if you get a more, I know J.J. McCarthy said like a vanilla look about the Raiders, but I would imagine it would be in the preseason. You'd want to give a little bit more of a vanilla look, and he can maybe read things a little bit more by the book and get experience doing that. So that's kind of what I'm hoping for here. But we'll see just how explosive this offense is. It's been very explosive in camp, and we'll see if that translates to real game situations with guys that are actually trying to tackle. So looking forward to it, and I'll talk to you next time.
So I thought that was really good stuff right there. Just give you some names to look for. You hear what he had to say about J.J. McCarthy, and especially talking about the vanilla defense. And I know that's been making the rounds by way of Raider Nation and social media. And I'm sure that the Raiders heard it. I'm sure they've seen it. I'm sure they probably, have something to say about it, because what we've learned over the course of training camp is that they hear and they read everything, and they've got something to say. And as Antonio Pierce said, it's a pissed off group, and they want to go out there and prove to everybody that they are wrong, and to themselves that they are correct about who they are. But on the people on the outside that don't think the Raiders are going to be worth the salt in 2024, that they're all wrong. So, yeah, I'm sure that they heard what J.J. McCarthy, the rookie out of Michigan, had to say about the vanilla defense. So coming up in segment number 2, I'll tell you what I'll be looking for from the Silver and Black. Before we get to that, though, I do want to remind you about the pre- and post-game show. I'll actually be hosting that for Compass Media. Kickoff is at 1 p.m. Pacific time on Saturday, Raiders and Vikings. So, like I said, I'll be doing the pre- and post-game show. The pre-game show starts 2 hours before kickoff, and then, of course, the post-game show comes right up after the game. This one I'll be doing from Raiders HQ, and then next week, the Cowboys game and the 49ers games will come to you live from Allegiant Stadium. But what does that mean for JT? Well, JT the Brick will do like he did last preseason, where he was on the radio play-by-play call, and so he'll be doing that from Minnesota. And then Jason Horowitz, who is the voice of the Silver and Black, is actually going to be on the TV side of things. So they switched it up last preseason just to have a little bit of fun, get some other people into some other roles. And I say it all the time, it's an honor to be able to, do what I'm doing and obviously covering my favorite team growing up, the Silver and Black, and to be a part of the pregame show and the postgame show is a hell of an honor. So excited about that. So if you happen to listen to the game on Saturday and you decide you want to listen to the pre and the postgame show, thank you. That's awesome. I'll definitely appreciate it because I will be doing that live from Raiders HQ. But what will I be focused in on Saturday's game? I'll tell you that coming up in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before I get to that, though, I do want to tell you about eBay Motors. It's passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. It doesn't matter if you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. With eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. You heard from Luke Braun, host of Locked On Vikings, what to look for, what to expect from the Vikings side of things. So what are we going to be looking for? What am I going to be looking for in the Raiders' first preseason game coming up on Saturday versus Minnesota Vikings as they take their talents on the road to Minnesota? Well, there's about 5 things that I'm really going to focus in on. Of course, I'm sure on Monday when we actually do a recap of the game and start talking about what stood out, there'll probably be more than 5 things, but I know I got 5 things that I'm really focused in on, at least right now, when it comes to the game. Anything could pop up during the game, but the first and foremost is obviously the most important part, which is the quarterback competition. We know that, right? The Raiders had 11 days of practice, 17 days in Costa Mesa, and there is no, resolution to who the starting quarterback is going to be. When the Raiders are going to start to decide who that is in preseason. It'll probably take at least 2 preseason games to come up with that. It might take 3. So the quarterback battle between Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew, and it's not just the quarterback battle, but I'm interested to see who actually gets to start. Is it going to be O'Connell? Is it going to be Minshew? The reason why that's intriguing to me is because back in when OTAs were going on and the rookie minicamp was going on, Antonio Pierce told us that Aiden O'Connell earned the right to have the first team reps. And he did. When they got to training camp, he was the first guy out there and got the reps, right? And then they switched up every single day. So O'Connell ran with the ones the first day, then Minshew. And they switched up each and every day throughout the course of training camp. So is that all, right? Has Minshew now earned the right to get the start? It doesn't really matter. As Antonio Pierce told Paul Gutierrez from ESPN, it doesn't really matter because they're going to play a quarter each. But I'm still interested to see who goes out there and gets the first snap. So you're going to see Aiden O'Connell out there for a quarter. You're going to see Gardner Minshew out there for a quarter. You're going to see a lot of Anthony Brown, and you'll see a lot of Carter Bradley. And I guarantee what's going to happen is you're going to see a lot of Anthony Brown, and he's going to look good, and someone's going to think that he should be the starting quarterback. He shouldn't be, right? He's a backup quarterback and a third-string, actually, quarterback as far as I'm concerned. Not a starting quarterback. But because you know how it is in preseason, there'll be some great plays that he'll probably make against third- and fourth-string guys, and everyone will believe, hey, maybe that guy should be the guy. He's big, he's athletic, he's strong. He's just very inconsistent with his arm. So It's down to O'Connell and Minshew. You know that. That's what it was when it started. That's what it's going to be. It's one of those two guys is going to get the start. I'm just interested to see, one, how they look in the game, and then also who actually gets to start. When the Raiders get their first drive of the 2024 preseason, who is it that's under center? Also, on the offensive line, I want to see DJ Glaze versus Thayer Munford. Thayer Munford is the starting right tackle. Thayer Munford has a hand issue, right? It's kind of in a soft cast right now, and it's something that he hurt on the in training camp when they put the pads on. And so DJ Glaze came on, and DJ Glaze, the young man, the third-round pick out of Maryland, has actually been holding his own. Is he perfect? No. Has Max Crosby destroyed him at times? Absolutely. But has he been able to, show a little something and that he still got his confidence and, that he could potentially turn into something? Sure. So I think what was kind of a foregone conclusion that Thayer Munford was going to be the starting right tackle. Now I think it's a question of, okay, well, is DJ Glaze going to push him? Is Thayer Munford going to be able to hold on to that position? Also, I want to see if they do any kind of rotation on the offensive line. In training camp, we saw Thayer Munford go to the left side, and then we saw DJ Glaze go to the right side at times. So will they do that in the game, or will it strictly be, a rotation of Munford and Glaze at the right tackle position only, strictly, right? And then just stick with Andrew Speed and Cody White here at the left tackle and left guard position. That's something I'm paying attention to. But really, for me and my money, it's DJ Glaze versus Thayer Munford. Again, Thayer Munford is the leader in the clubhouse. He is the starting right tackle. But DJ Glaze is letting everybody know that, hey, don't forget about me. Pay attention to me. I'm pretty good as well, even though he's a third-round pick out of Maryland. And I'll say this, a little side note on guys out of Maryland. They're just coached correctly. They're coached up, man. They're not getting the 5 stars. They're not getting the 4 stars. They're getting like 3 stars, 2 stars. They're getting regional guys, guys from the area that are staying home, and they just find a way to coach them up. What I see about guys that come from Maryland, they have really been, just taught the right way and prepared for the next level. And so that's one thing that DJ Glaze has going for him. And I'll say that's about Jacorian Bennett as well. A guy that everyone says is very coachable. And when I talked to his coach from Maryland, he said not only is Jacorian Bennett very coachable, he was raised right because he is so coachable. He could take constructive criticism without taking it too personal. So, again, those Maryland guys, there's something pretty special about them as far as I'm concerned. Another thing I'm looking for in Saturday's game is just a young talent. Guys like DeCam Richardson, I've talked a lot about him, the 4th-round pick out of Mississippi State. Tommy Eichenberg, 5th-round pick out of Ohio State, the linebacker. Trey Taylor, 7th-round pick out of Air Force, the safety. Those are just rookies, right? I mean, obviously I want to see what a Tyree Wilson looks like in year 2. I want to see what, Jacorian Bennett's going to look like. He had a really strong training camp, so he's going into year 2. Want to see what he looks like. Chris Smith on the back end, the 6th-round pick out of Georgia, the safety. Want to see him. Just, again, the young talent, because that young talent is going to continue to develop this team moving forward. But really, those 3 guys that I pointed out off top, those rookies, DeCam Richardson, Tommy Eichenberg, Trey Taylor, want to see what those guys in particular look like. And I think DeCam Richardson is probably going to be a guy that's going to pop first out of all those rookies. He looks like he's the guy that's got the most promise, and I think the Raiders are pretty excited about what he brings to the table. He's long, he's fast, and he's raw. They're going to continue to try to develop him as quickly as possible, and at some point, he'll probably be in the mix. As Ricky Manning Jr., the cornerback coach, told me, we don't need you for next year. We want you this year. So that's what DeCam is working for. Also, how's the run game looking, right? Zamir White, Alexander Madison, they got this, zone blocking scheme that they're running, led by James Craig, the offensive line coach. And, I want to see how this, this run block, this new scheme that the Raiders are running, how it's going to look, right? We know Alexander Madison is used to the scheme. I want to see how Zamir White continues to develop. And I'll say this, there was times in training camp, Zamir White looked quick like a hiccup, man. I mean, that dude was out of there. All of a sudden, it's just like, whoa, Zamir White looks like he put some afterburners on, right? He just shot out of a cannon. And so if he can continue to do that, I guess that's a sign of fresh legs. But he was looking good. So I want to see if that looks the same against a different opponent, right? Against someone that's not the Raiders. So, I mean, obviously, from what we've seen in Costa Mesa, I want to see how it looks compared to how it's looked before in previous years, going up against a new opponent in preseason. Obviously, it's a new coaching staff. It's a new scheme, new players. Just kind of want to see where they're at in preseason game number 1. But that running game in particular, I really want to pay attention to. And finally, I want to see what happens when J.J. McCarthy gets in the game. You heard Luke Braun in segment number 1 talking about the vanilla defense for the Raiders. And again, the defense probably will be kind of vanilla. I don't think that Patrick Graham and company are going to show a whole lot. But for a rookie to come out and start talking about a Raiders defense, it's probably something that Max Crosby and company will try to find a way to take personal. And that's okay. I have no problem with any of that. So just interested to see what that looks like. And of course, J.J. McCarthy is a future quarterback there for Minnesota. So how do the Raiders defend that guy, right? How is he going to look? I'm interested to see what he looks like in general, but I want to see how the Raiders defense goes up against him. It's probably going to be, by the time he gets in there, it probably won't be the starters for the Raiders. So how do the next level guys, how do the second team, the third team, how do they stack up against J.J. McCarthy, and can they continue to make plays, right? That's something that's super intriguing to me as well. The Raiders got a ton of talent on defense. And so, the good thing is when the depth is there, you can have, your second team in and your third team in, and they can continue to make plays. So that's what I'm really looking at. The quarterback battle between O'Connell and Minshew, who actually gets to start. DJ Glaze versus Thayer Munford at that right tackle spot. The young talent in general that the Raiders have. What does that run game look like? And how do the Raiders defend J.J. McCarthy when, in fact, he does get into the game? That's what I'll be focused in on Saturday's game versus Vikings preseason game number 1. Coming up in segment number 3, your calls and texts off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Before we get into that, though, I want to tell you about a couple great sponsors here on the Locked On Raiders podcast, including the title sponsor, which is LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you got to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but they might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So basically, if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. So they're constantly finding ways to make the process easier. They even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and even quicker. Right now, post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. I also want to tell you about BetterHelp. And I got back from a vacation not too long ago, and no, it was not Costa Mesa. It was when I went to Hawaii with the wife and was able to relax. And that was something I needed, a little calming vacation, get me away from everything, just kind of clear the mind as I get ready for what's upcoming, which is the grind of the football season. And it is long, and it is a grind. So I was blessed that I was able to do that, and I feel like I'm in a really good place going into the football season. Everyone's not able to do that when they get the chance. They're not always able to do that for many different reasons. And so sometimes you need another escape. You need another outlet. You need something now that can help you kind of help yourself. And that's where BetterHelp and therapy can come into play. They offer opportunities at therapy that best fits you. It's entirely online. It's convenient. It's able to be flexible to fit your schedule. All you got to do is fill out a quick questionnaire, get matched up with a licensed therapist. And if you need to switch therapists at any time, no additional charge, you can. Talk with someone that has no agenda on your life. Don't compare. Start focusing with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOn today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp. BetterHelp.com/LockedOn. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and texts straight off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Let's start off with a text from D-Real Raider. What's up, Q? It's the Real Raider, longtime listener, first time chiming in. Got 2 questions for you. 1, although the quarterback competition was not as competitive as we thought it was going to be, do you think that Aiden O'Connell made a significant improvement from last season? And 2, have you noticed any frustration from Devontae or any other players since training camp is wrapping up and there's still no clear starting quarterback? We appreciate everything you and Ari do for Raider Nation. Just win, baby. That's from D-Real and the Raider. Thanks so much for the text. I do appreciate you. And as far as Aiden O'Connell goes, I was kind of disappointed. I thought we were going to see him take a major step from year 1 to year 2, and I didn't see it, right? Maybe we'll see it on Saturday in the game. Maybe he just needs that game setting and go up against someone who's not the Raiders defense. But what we saw, at least what I saw in training camp, was a lot of inconsistencies, right? I mean, there'd be moments where he has a nice pass here, nice pass there, nice play there, nice drive here, but it was never anything that was consistent. Even when he had a good day, it was never backed up by like another good day, right? It would be like one good day and that was it. And so that's the problem. That you just need to have the consistencies there. As far as Devontae goes, he left last Wednesday, and because his wife is having a baby, and we haven't seen him back, right? And so I don't think she's had the baby yet. I thought at some point that they were going to induce labor, but I'm not 100% sure, and I'm not a doctor. So, obviously he wants to be there for the birth of his baby boy, and that's awesome. I understand that. So don't know if he's going to appear with the Raiders in Minnesota, if he's going to show back up in Henderson. Not too sure when we'll see from Devontae next. He was pretty quiet. He wasn't, real loud. And look, he's not a real loud guy, but he didn't really, do a whole lot while he was there at training camp. But remember, he was only there until last Wednesday, and then he was gone after that. They had an off day on Thursday, and we never saw him again. So it's really hard to get a gauge on Devontae as far as I'm concerned based off the training camp. It was just a small sample size from what we saw. But thanks so much for that. I do appreciate you. Up next, got a call from Raider Guru. He's calling to talk about Aiden O'Connell and the fact he's not receiving enough love. Here he is, Raider Guru.
Hey, Q, it's Raiders Guru. I just wanted to call to say something about Aiden O'Connell and how people kind of don't give him enough love. I think that if you look back and watching the receiver series, if Aiden O'Connell didn't go 3-1 over those last 4 games and had instead went 1-3, we wouldn't have Devontae Adams on our team because he would have left for Green Bay. We wouldn't have AP on our team because there's no way to justify hiring a coach who went 1-3. And yeah, there'd be no AOC starting for us right now. But those things did go, and we do have Devontae, we do have AT, and we have a team that we love. And it's because Aiden O'Connell was able to go 3-1 under his last 4 games and save everybody a job. Just something to consider. All right, Q. Go Raiders.
Guru, thanks for the call, my man. And look, O'Connell went 5-4 after taking over November 1st, right? It wasn't just him that won those games. It was a collective effort by the team, especially the defense. I mean, there's no doubt about it. The defense did a lot of the heavy lifting. He got the love. That's why he got the first team reps to start the offseason. That's why AP gave him that love because he did earn that. But you can only, hold on to last year and what he did last year for so long. Now it's take that next step. And the problem with Aiden O'Connell, as I said to the Real Raider, is I didn't see him take that next step. I said a long time ago he's going to get the starting job with for this year, just because I did believe he was going to take that next step based off of what happened last year. He went through hell to win those games, and just with the calm, no chaos, consistent coaching staff, right? Guys that believe in him. I just assumed that everything was going to be a lot better, a lot smoother, and he was going to go to training camp and show why he was the starting quarterback of the Raiders. And unfortunately, that just didn't happen. So as far as love, I think he got a lot of love. He's got to go and create the love now. He's got to go out there and show why Raider Nation and everyone else should give him love. And at this stage of the game, he hasn't done that. But Raider Guru, thanks so much for the call. I do appreciate you. Up next, got a text from George, the Jack Tatum Raider in St. Louis. He says, Q, I think it's time to focus on college quarterbacks. 2024 seems destined for mediocre quarterback play. I said before that 6 teams need a quarterback like the Raiders do right now. Who's picking ahead of the Raiders and need a quarterback? Giants will suck, guaranteed. Arizona always sucks. Their quarterback's too small, always injured. Tennessee has a bust under center. Seattle's nothing long-term. Tampa has Baker Mayfield, and his bounce back is over. Derek Carr can't do it. Rattler will get a shot. Stafford is running on fumes for the Rams. I think the Raiders will be the 4th team to pick that needs a quarterback. I see Will Howard, Ohio State transfer from Kansas, as the best guy. That's from George, the Jack Tatum Raider in St. Louis. Thanks so much for the text. I do appreciate you. And that's a lot of guesstimating right now, right? It's August 9th. It's not even the first preseason game being played yet. Let's let this thing play out for a little while, right? I mean, there's plenty of time to talk about what quarterbacks that, maybe the Raiders could be looking at for 2025's draft. It's not even one for preseason game yet. I refuse to deep dive into the draft at this stage of the game. Now, there's, people are putting out mock drafts already, like Matt Miller from ESPN already put out his mock draft, and he had the Raiders trading up from number 8 to number 2 to go get Shedeur Sanders. But, who says the Raiders are going to be picking at number 8? Who says that they're going to even be, there? Who says they're not a playoff team? Like, let's let this thing play out a little bit before we start deep diving into, April's draft. I'm not ready to do that. We got plenty of games to watch. We got plenty of time to do all that. And, let's see the college football season a little bit too, because I guarantee you there'll be some quarterbacks that'll step up and play and that we weren't talking about. We weren't talking about Jaden Daniels last year, right? And he went and won the Heisman Trophy. A lot of folks weren't talking about Anthony Richardson the year before he got drafted. A lot of people thought he was going to be like a second or third round pick. He ended up being picked in the top 5. Like, there's always going to be someone that's going to emerge that nobody was really talking about. So I'm going to go ahead and slow my roll. I'm going to assume the right to slow my roll on next year's quarterbacks that are coming out in the draft and just observe what the Raiders have going on this year at this stage of the game. So, but hey, you got the early jump on us. Cool. You'll be ready when it comes draft time. Thanks, George. I appreciate the text. Up next is a call from Raider Izzy. He's calling to explain why he's pretty fired up about the opportunity that Gardner Minshew has as the Raiders quarterback. Here he is, Raider Izzy.
What up, Q? Raider Izzy. Wanted to throw out something I've been thinking about here. We obviously, big talk is the quarterback situation and where it's going. I love AOC, but I got to tell you, man, I'm excited about the idea for Minshew here, and let me kind of explain why. One of the issues I feel like Getsy had in Chicago, one, I don't feel like he tailored the offense to Justin Fields' needs, which is concerning to me, and that's why I'm not the biggest Getsy fan. But at the same time, Fields is not the right fit for Getsy's offense from the standpoint of Getsy likes to get the ball in his playmaker's hands. Doesn't mean the quarterback is the playmaker. So, basically it's kind of like a quick dish and then maneuver if need be. We're going to be looking to get the ball out to, all of these weapons that we have. And then if that's not open, then the quarterback can kind of maneuver, just like Aaron Rodgers did. And if he had to use his legs, he can do that. Fields is always going to be a run-first guy. He wants to try to find that run first. Okay? I feel like Minshew is tailor-made for this. He processes the field pretty good. He takes his reads. He maneuvers if need be. He's a very smart dude. Dude picks up the playbook real quick. I also think the fact that we've had such a conservative offense forever. I mean, with Carr, with throwing it away on fourth down, like so many people love to bring up all the time, and all of his throwaways and all of the, for a long time there, we were getting the basically the dump passes and stuff like that, and the bubble screens that we used to see all the time with Musgrave and things like that. Like, it was such a conservative offense. The last thing that Minshew is, almost to a fault, is conservative. So I think this could be a good fit. He's going to take a shot. I think Adams is going to love him. He's going to take a lot of shots to Adams. I just feel like this is the best fit for Getsy. I really do. I'm excited about that. I really think that. I think he's going to take his shots down the field, but at the same time, he's going to run the offense. And the fact that Pierce is a little bit more conservative, maybe that'll cut down on all of some of the turnovers that Minshew's had in the past. But I'm looking forward to it, man. I think it's a level of being a little bit more risky that we haven't seen in a really long time. So, just my opinion. Wanted to throw that out there. Take it easy, bro. Love the show. Later.
Raider Izzy, thanks so much for the call, my man. It's always great to hear from you. And, yeah, I mean, look, you describe Getsy's offense to the T. It's about getting the ball to the playmakers and letting them do their thing afterwards, right? And that's what I saw all training camp long. They got the ball out of their hands as quick as possible. Brock Bowers was heavily involved. Michael Mayer was heavily involved. You saw Jacoby Myers. He's going to have a special year. Mark my words. I said it last year that he was going to be a special player, right? And he was. And he would have had a 1,000-yard season, in my opinion, if Kareem Jackson hadn't knocked him out in week 1. I think Jacoby Myers is a special player, and he was the star of training camp offensively. There's no doubt about it. He's a 1,000-yard receiver this year, as far as I'm concerned. Barring injury, he's a 1,000-yard receiver. So he was pretty special, and he's a guy that's going to get his hands on the ball early and often. Obviously, the run game is important, but the biggest key to this whole thing is going to be ball security. They got to have ball security. It's something that Minshew mentioned at the end of training camp. O'Connell mentioned. AP mentioned. Luke Getsy mentioned. Everyone's mentioned ball security, ball security, ball security. If you don't have ball security, you're in trouble. So Raider Izzy, thanks so much for that call. I do appreciate you. It's always great to hear from you. And got one more text. This is a pretty lengthy one here from KJ. He says, Q, just listen to today's pod. I save them for the evening until after my workouts, and it got me thinking. One, I feel like the quarterback situation lends itself to carrying just 2 of the 53 this year. One protected on the practice squad. I don't normally support this approach, but there seems like very limited value in keeping either Braun or Bradley on the 53. I believe roster rules help here as well. Correct me if I'm wrong. And having that extra roster spot for a young prospect or added depth might prove wise. Maybe a waiver wire quarterback prospect would make sense too. 2, future topic of interest. You talked about how many points would our offense need to score to win games. How about looking ahead at opponents and what their offense is likely to be? I know things change every year, but just as with the Raiders, there are assumptions about how strong units will be. I'd love to see a review of opposing offenses on our schedule and what might be able to expect game by game. So juiced about this defense. Love what you do for Raider Nation, Q, and I think your future is very bright. I'm a lifetime Raider fan from Illinois. Your podcast helps me stay connected to daily developments, and I can't get enough. That's from KJ. He said, P.S. My son Nash is also a devoted Raider fan. Listens to you daily, and he just added my first grandchild as the newest member of Raider Nation. Just win, baby, Rhett. There you go. I like that. KJ, thanks so much. Nash, thanks so much. And just win, baby, Rhett. Appreciate you as well. And, we can always look at the opponents and how many points per game we think that they could score. And obviously looking at what the Raiders can do as a defense and how many points per game they're going to be allowing. I think that the Raiders are going to probably allow on the average, because I think they're going to be a special defensive unit. I think they're going to average somewhere between like 16 and 18 points per game. I really do. And that may be a little bit low, right? Maybe it's going to be closer to 20, but I think that they need to average about 16 points per game, because I don't think the Raiders offense is going to score more than 20, 21 points per game, but that's just me. As far as the quarterbacks go, with the new quarterback rule, the emergency quarterback, you can have that third quarterback. So you can have an Anthony Braun still on your roster and still have him there. But if he goes to the emergency quarterback, then he's got to play, right? So that's the thing. But I think that having that guy will be okay on the roster. So I think there'll definitely be 3 on the roster for that emergency quarterback role. And then they'll probably put a guy like Carter Bradley on the practice squad, as far as I'm concerned. You just want to make sure that you have as many quarterbacks as possible, still, especially if you believe in them. And I do think that they like both Anthony Braun and Carter Bradley, not as starters, but as guys that can help the team, scout team quarterbacks, third string quarterbacks, emergency quarterback, whatever the case may be. I do think that they like them for that role. So we will see. I guarantee one thing: we'll see a lot of Carter Bradley, and we'll see a lot of Anthony Braun coming up tomorrow against the Vikings. We'll see a lot of those guys against the Cowboys, and we'll see a lot of those guys against the San Francisco 49ers preseason game number 3 as well. So that's going to do it for today's show. Thanks again for making the Locked On Raiders podcast your first listen every day. If you want to get caught up on any other team like the Vikings, make sure to tune in to Luke Braun. Many thanks to Luke Braun for giving us a couple minutes just to kind of let us know what to expect from the Minnesota Vikings, what we should be looking at from their point of view. But if you want to check out any other team and maybe get up to date on how many points per game that they think that their teams respectively will be scoring throughout the 2024 season, make sure you check them out. All 32 teams are represented here on the Locked On Podcast Network. And, of course, there's over 200 total shows across the network: college, draft, baseball, different sports, whatever the case may be, hockey. They've got everything covered. So check it out, Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Of course, the Raiders game again on Saturday, 1 p.m. Pacific time kickoff. I'll be on the pregame show, Compass Media. If you're in Las Vegas, you can also hear the game on Raider Nation Radio 920 as well. But, looking forward to that. Again, 1 p.m. Pacific kickoff for Raiders and Vikings. Of course, we'll be back on Monday talking about the outcome, what we saw, what we liked, and what we didn't like. All that will come up on Monday's edition. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the game, Raider Nation, and we'll talk on Monday. Until then, take care of your family, love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.